here. What is this event going to entail, and how may it impact other non-conference events in college basketball moving forward with the money that's involved for the collectives?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, guys.
Yeah.
It's developing as we discuss here today, but there are some emerging details that are helping us solve that puzzle. I think it was at first announced a few months back that this was going to be an event, and several around the event space in college basketball are people I've been in touch with over the last several off seasons and trying to help teams as more of a consulting role on how to go about their schedule. San Diego State and the Mountain West are a big part of the teams that I help on an annual basis. So the idea behind the event is to give each team that comes the opportunity to earn up to $1 million for the team, is my understanding, as kind of a guaranteed number, and then the opportunity to earn another $1 million should they win the event. Now, they're trying to avoid it being connected to pay for play directly, so that these perhaps commercials, ads, etc., that the players and the team up for the event. So you'll start to see some of that play out for each of the 8 teams that are now committed to the event. What I heard from the beginning was San Diego State was actually one of the first teams to commit. So pretty savvy move, in my opinion, by the Aztecs to get involved early. I think the concern around the industry is how sustainable is this? Because some of the more veteran groups, starting with ESPN all the way over to the Battle for Atlantis, some of the most successful organizers across the country, many of them have expressed to me personally that they don't see how this is a ROI opportunity long term. But perhaps they do have some generous donors that are not looking to make immediate profit on the event. So we're all very curious to see how that part of it shakes out. But there's clearly a commitment. We just some of the recent news is Creighton became the last team to make it a complete 8-team field, and Creighton was committed to the Battle for Atlantis, which is a significant statement. Battle for Atlantis and Maui Invitational, as you guys know, are the 2 premier events annually in college basketball, and teams fight and have to earn kind of over a historic good run of great seasons consistently to be invited to either of those events. So to see any team pull out of an event like that to do this just shows how significant it can be. The other part of it is as well is a lot of this promised NIL money through events, whether it's a preseason tournament like this or even some one-off games that you're seeing scheduled more and more lately. Some of that money is being promised back directly to returning roster members, players that they've recruited in the portal. So there's just so much that's on the line for these guys to keep their rosters together. And I think that's why you saw a team like Texas A&M jump from the Charleston Classic into this, because they have guys like Wade Taylor, Jace Carter, some Anderson Garcia, some real studs coming back to that team. And I think some of that, and again, this is just me reading between the lines. I'm not getting that validated by A&M directly, but you can kind of see this as a way to prevent some of those guys from entering the portal, because when A&M joined this tournament, it was just a couple days before the portal deadline.
What do you expect the format to be in this NIL tournament?
So we're getting some clues now. My information early on was that there would be 2 pods. You of course have 2 SEC teams with Alabama and Texas A&M. So given the NCAA rules that you're not allowed to plan an event where teams can be in the same bracket from the same league unless it was signed before realignment. So like you'll see that in Battle for Atlantis this year with Arizona and West Virginia. They will be allowed to play each other there, but that's because they committed before realignment was announced. In this case, this came together late. So Houston cannot play against Texas A&M. And I'm sorry, Texas A&M cannot play against Alabama, I should say. They're both in the SEC. And you have the same situation with Oregon and Rutgers both being in the new Big Ten. So they have started to split up pods. It came out earlier today that Houston will actually play both Oregon. They'll play Rutgers, Notre Dame, and I believe Alabama. And so if it is going to be 2 true pods, that would mean San Diego State would have Creighton, Texas A&M, and the other team I'm missing, I believe, is Oregon. So that would be the 3 teams San Diego State would play if they do the pod format. However, we don't know for sure if they don't mix and match these opponents. So that's the last piece of the format.
Rocco Miller with us right now. He covers college hoops and does an amazing job of it right here on John and Jim San Diego Sports 760. I think that the interesting part is a lot of times when you think preseason tournament, what's called MTEs, but for fans, like a preseason tournament, you think there's like a winner. And if there's an additional $1 million in here, how do you determine a winner if you have multiple pods and there's a round robin? Is it going to be like the NBA event that they did this year where all of a sudden you're looking at like who beat whom by how many points to determine who won the event? Or is that why this still hasn't yet been announced? Because these are some of the details and logistics that still have to be worked through.
Yeah, that's my presumption is that's why it's not been fully announced with the details, because they are still negotiating, how they would determine a winner. I think, you'll see in some of the articles that came out since Creighton joined, which was just a few days ago at the end of last week, that they are now discussing taking the combined prize pool, whether that's $1 million or $2 million. I think that's still being worked out, but then you could maybe divide that up. So if you have, 2 teams that go 3-0, or if you have a mixture of matchups and somehow you get to a place where 3 teams go 3-0, they would just divide up that pot. I don't think they're going to get down to a tiebreaker scenario or anything like that, because that would actually defeat the purpose of what this is more about. This is the name of the event, I believe, is going to be called the Players NIL Festival or something close to that effect. And so basically this is an event for the players. So the last thing you want to do is punish a player or punish a player's earning opportunity by, taking some of the money away for losing a tiebreaker. So I don't foresee that, but I do see maybe a scenario where they have to split up some of that prize pool.
What does $1 million mean for a collective like San Diego State?
I think it's really important because it's, NIL in general is it's not like what we think of with pro contracts where there's guaranteed this or guaranteed that. So a lot of the variables are pretty significant. So there's earning opportunities up to that amount, but that leaves a lot of wiggle room. And in fact, most cases, the players are not getting sometimes what they're promised. And so within that, San Diego State's obviously trying their very hardest to stay at the top of the nation's cream of the crop program. They operate with a budget much higher than anybody in the Mountain West. And in order to continue to retain and build with top talent, they've got to figure out ways to compete in this way. So programs like San Diego State and even programs like Oregon, Rutgers, and Texas A&M and Creighton, they can take money from this and say, listen, this is just as good of an earning opportunity as you'll have with a donor promising it. In fact, it might be even better because we have it in writing. Until the NCAA starts figuring out its overall, ground rules and bylaws and guardrails behind NIL, which is so undefined, which is why it's the Wild West right now. I think this is a perfect opportunity for San Diego State and an invite to the dinner table to play with the nation's best. And effectively, if they play those 3 teams that we listed, Oregon and Texas A&M and Creighton coming into this year, you're probably seeing at least 2 of those in the top 15. And Oregon's going to bring back Shellstad, Bartholomew. They picked up TJ Bamba and Brandon Angel in the portal already. So those are some really strong tests on top of, as we know, San Diego State will play Gonzaga this year as well. And I think they'll look to add another big game or 2 as we go. So I think it's very exciting for them, and it's an opportunity for their players to cash in on some good play.
I'm pretty sure San Diego State and Creighton are in the same league at this point. They've met in an Elite Eight. They've met in a first round. They met in Vegas 5 years ago. The team with Malachi Flynn and Yanni Wetzel, San Diego State blew the doors off Creighton about 5 years ago. It'll be interesting to see if they do, in fact, meet up again this fall. One more, Rocco, before you go, because there was news this weekend about realignment in college hoops out west. The WCC adding Grand Canyon. They've had a lot of success recently. We've seen San Diego State take on the Lopes. Seattle University as well going to the WCC. My question isn't really what it means for the WCC. My question is, what does it mean for the Mountain West moving forward?
Well, I think I think it's there's a lot of details within that. I think first of all, WCC's protecting their future with the potential. Gonzaga's been on the fence for a long time. looking at options in either the Big 12, the Big East, or maybe it is better for them to stay based on financial incentives that that's kept Gonzaga actually from ever joining the Mountain West. But I think what it does is it gives wiggle room, of which the WCC fully expects both Washington State and Oregon State to be just a 2-year kind of a loan program, if you will, if you're familiar with soccer terminology. But that the fact that Oregon State and Washington State won the preliminary lawsuit with the PAC, and now of course it's just the PAC-2, and they own the rights to that. They have the ability to go out and grab teams from the Mountain West, grab teams from the American Conference, grab teams that make sense for them, and that's of course most likely going to be football-driven decision making. They could do what they want with basketball. We'll see if there's any different teams in addition to what they want to do football. The other option for them is if the Mountain West somehow ingests those two into their own formed conference. But I do think what Washington State and Oregon State prefer is to have full autonomy over who gets invited into that league, which is why the Pac-12 hasn't fully folded. It's officially still an entity and controlled by those two schools. But that won't happen until probably nothing will be announced. I don't think in the next year. Maybe it will, but nothing will take fold until the 26-27 school year. But I do think the stage is set for the Mountain West to have changes based on all of that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's what it seems like is occurring, especially in the West right now after what has occurred with the Pac-12 over the last 12 months. Rocco, we love your reporting and your insight and all of your knowledge, and we hope to have you on again at some point later this summer. This tournament will be announced sooner rather than later, this NIL tournament, in your mind?
I would imagine so, because now all 8 teams have signed contracts, and that's I've been able to validate that. Usually it's not too long after all the contracts are signed where they want to do a press release. And keep in mind, the $1 million is, again, being earned through a lot of different advertisements, festivities leading up to the event. So I'm sure the organizers are anxious to get some of that process started. And so I would expect something sooner than later.
Rocco, appreciate it. Great stuff as always. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Rocco Miller.
I'm excited for this, man. Let's do this.
We got a broadcast from the NIL Players Tournament in Vegas, right? John and Jim? If they give us $1 million to broadcast from this event, would you do it for $1 million, or do you need more? I mean, Washington apparently, reportedly today, remember Great Osibor? A lot of the matchups, Utah State, San Diego State, Ladie, Osibor. Ladie got one Player of the Year award. Osibor with one more year of eligibility. Brent, did you hear this? At the University of Washington, reportedly got the most money ever given via NIL. Again, it's only been a few years, but $2.2 million for the upcoming year.
Crazy. Wild.
Wild, wild west, like we're talking about.
I would broadcast for like $10.
Yeah, I know you would. You'd probably pay $10 to broadcast.
I'd pay them $10 to broadcast there in Vegas for this NIL tournament. A lot of good teams. I love the bubble, like the
pods,
the pod format, right?
Yeah. Give me some San Diego State Creighton. I love that.
It almost feels like the NBA season in tournament.
Yeah,
or the NBA season
in-season tournament.
In-season tournament.
Yep.
Where they had like pods.
Yeah.
And then the team with the best winning percentage
advanced
to the next round, and they play each other and they meet up. Like, that's really cool.